Hey everyone, and welcome to Carnivore Done Right. Overconsumption of food not making you lose weight. How about we adjust your intake of fat and protein? And did you know the biggest issue why you are not losing weight is related to dairy? So when I talk about fat to protein ratio and why certain individuals aren't losing weight is because sometimes the overconsumption of food. So try to keep it as minimal as possible, but what is your goal? So for example, if you do weigh roughly about 180 pounds and your goal is 150 pounds, so you want to lose about 30 pounds, give or take. So take the 150 pounds. For protein intake, I highly recommend roughly anywhere between 0.7 grams to about 0.9 grams per 1 pound of body weight. So if you weigh 150 pounds, taking 0.7 grams per 1 pound of body weight, that's roughly about 105 grams of protein per day. And when it comes down to fat, based on your energy level, your athletic performance, your activity level, either start roughly at a 1-to-1 ratio, go as high as 2-to-1 ratio. So for example, if you're consuming 105 grams of protein, then double that. You should be consuming at least 210 grams of fat. And the best sources of fat would be egg yolks, wild salmon, and one of my favorite is suet. I find suet is the cleanest and is much easier to absorb and digest. Now, one of the biggest mistake is when I talk about fat to protein ratio, and I throw in a number for audience, and I would say, consume about 110 grams of protein or 150 grams of protein, and they do the calculation and they come back to me, they say, oh, that means I can only eat about 10 or 12 ounces of steak. No, that's totally wrong. So for example, if you take a flank steak or you take a ribeye steak of about 6 ounces, when you break it down, that 6 ounces is giving you roughly, give or take, anywhere between 27 to 30 grams of protein, right? And that same steak is possibly giving you about 20 grams of fat. And from there, just do the calculations. So for fat, you are required to consume at least 105 grams. And that one steak only giving you about 30 grams. So definitely you gotta consume about 2 or 3 steaks a day with the additional fats to kind of hit that level of protein that is required on a daily basis. Now going back to milk, milk is the only product out there that contains lactose, which is sugar and fat. And whenever you have a mixture of sugar and fat in the same meal, you are never gonna be satiated at all. I'll give you an example. Yes, I highly tell everybody to consume cheese, but don't try not to go for the North American cheeses just because they do come from an A1 cow, and A1 cows, the lactase in them, we aren't able to digest them as good, and certain individuals tend to be quite sensitive. That's why sometimes we tend to get a little bit constipated or bloated as well too. So looking at the A2 cows, they either come from, let's say, buffalo, goat, and sheep. And what happens is our body sometimes can digest it a little bit better, a little bit easier. Even though it does activate your immune, but it's still a little bit easier to digest. Going back again to the cheese, so imagine, you can sit on the table and get a block of cheese and cut one piece after another, and guess what? You are never satiated. You can eat the whole freaking block. It could be close to a kilogram or so, and you're never satiated. I'll give you an example. I bought 4 kilograms of cheese for the whole month just to kind of test it out, and I end up finishing 4 kilograms and roughly within a week and a half, because you're never satiated. It's like going back to talking about raw nuts. You can buy a bag of raw nuts and actually be sitting down watching TV or whatever you're doing, and you can actually consume the whole bag. And guess what? You get up and you're starving, yet you feel a slight digestion stress, but you're starving just because you're not satiated. Just so that said, all type of dairies that I tried myself, whether it's butter, certain cheeses, even milk or even yogurt. Me as an individual person, I tend to get rashes on my chest. I tend to get sore throat. I tend to get quite a bit of inflammation, and that's the reason why you're not losing weight, is because the inflammation we tend to get from milk. Now, since the milk, to break it even further, you know how I mentioned there's a lactose and the fats are all combined into that one product, and that becomes quite dangerous. For babies, when they're actually consuming milk, if you've noticed, they'll actually consume one bottle after another. Why? Because they're never satiated. But for them, is they need the additional calories to put on weight and to grow. For us adults, we're already past that growing phase, so there's no point of us to consume dairy and continue actually adding these calorie intakes, and we're never going to end up losing weight. So I would highly recommend anybody who's going onto a carnivore diet to 100% eliminate cheese for at least 30 to 60 days, and you'll notice your weight loss has increased, your inflammation has dropped, and you feel much healthier overall. But if you really tend to enjoy cheese, and because sometimes cheese is something fast you can kind of grab and eat and leave, which is great, try not to consume it daily. Once a week, once every 2 weeks, it's fine. But the moment you'll notice that your weight has halted again, definitely stop for at least a good 30 days to actually reset that metabolic rate. So some tribes still consume milk, but keep in mind the milk they consume is 100% raw, and having 100% raw milk, it does still have its own enzyme, which is lipase, and lipase is essential for breaking down that fats. If you still want to enjoy some type of milk product, then definitely I highly recommend you investing into some really good pancreatic enzymes, but make sure the lipase is quite high in them. Now, again, going back to the dairy and the constipation, it's just because a lot of individuals are quite sensitive to the protein found in cow's milk. If that's the case, another option you can always do, look for buffalo, goat, and or sheep milk. It is a little bit easier to digest, but no matter what, it still does turn on immune. I highly recommend you completely eliminate from your diet if you want to lose weight. Another great tip from Carnivore done right.